So Marissa gave me this title for my 10-minute slot, and I had no idea she was a fan of Anastasia, but the lyrics seem right. You'll be very pleased to know I will not be doing karaoke on this. Well, depends later on. I want to give you a quick whiz through those behind the original C-Pod, some of the characters we met on the way, and how other things impacted us. Although we didn't realise it at the time, they had a significant change on the way things were going to go forwards for NC-Pod. So Brendan and John, you've seen their pictures before, they were behind the thoughts of C-Pod. They were different characters in many ways. They disagreed on politics, on religion, they disagreed on education, on London transport, on national transport. However, they agreed on one thing. They shared this distinct sense of purpose and the fight for clinical audit by clinicians for clinicians. One of the mantras at the time was that clinical audit is coming. And who's going to do it? And I think Brendan and John's challenge to the profession, the question to the profession was, do you want to do it or do you want it done to you? Oh, just losing my grip. Now, in 1982, it crystallised because there were three critical ideas for the project. We had to get confidentiality sorted out because at the time we were scoring the performance of clinicians. We decided we would destroy all the data as fast as we could, but that still led to concerns about legal action preventing us from actually doing so. We tried to test the public interest case with the government solicitor, and we never really got a clear answer about whether the courts would protect us or not. We had to get the trust of colleagues, and the way that Brendan and John thought this would happen would be to go and meet everybody face to face. It meant a lot of travelling, a lot of going about, but going to see people, not being remote. And the independence of funding, as Ian was saying, the funding has always been an issue, and you'll see more later on. Maintaining that independence of funding at the beginning was very important, so we did not seek Department of Health money. There were other things going on in the early 80s. The Bristol concerns were actually starting to reach both the Department of Health and the colleges. C-Pod itself was distant from this, but we didn't realise that this was going to impact on the future of C-Pod. So we had a cunning plan, of course. It was simple. We would visit everyone, we would explain to everyone what we were doing. They would all say yes, no problem. We would get the data, simples, we would publish. How could it go wrong? So we ran into money trouble. Like all good plans, the Nuffield Trust money ran out. We didn't want to approach the Department of Health, and we wanted to maintain our independence of funding. So we asked Robert Maxwell. Actually not this one. Who was a forerunner to Philip Green, as some of you will know. It was actually this one, Robert Maxwell, who was the King Fund Chief Executive. He was much more of a recluse than the other one, who isn't. At the King's Fund, Robert was extremely keen on pump priming what he thought C-Pod would go to. I personally did manage to invite the wrong Robert Maxwell to one of our launches at C-Pod. That was a very bemusing afternoon, I never told Brendan and John that. I said it was a glitch in the post room. So. Now we had to do the project still on a shoestring. I can distinctly remember that what we used to do was use the NHS Northern Region, which at the time was where Brendan was based. He was great friends with the finance director, and they would let us use their mainframe overnight, and they would run all the finance data until midnight, and then they would run the C-Pod data after then, and then it would be stuck on a courier for us to investigate around about midday the next day. So Bristol was still bubbling under. There was plenty going on. Civil servants, Norman Holliday was key to all this, and he was actually key to eventually getting C-Pod further funding for the national study. They were getting nervous. They were getting very nervous about how they were going to deal with this when it all became public. This is all post C-Pod because the public inquiry brought all this out later on. But it was clearly a matter of concern at the time. So given that, in 1986, we decided that we would take the bull by the horns and we would go and seek national funding. We knew that we were about to publish. We went to see Barney Hayhoe, who was the minister at the time, and we asked him directly for national funding. He was an extremely nice man, I have to say. He was extremely nice. He told me and us that he would do everything in his power to make sure that we would get national funding, and we would have his full support on our bid. The next morning, he was reshuffled out of cabinet and out of the Department of Health, and we never got to see a minister again, so it stopped. So we carried on, and we published in that lovely logo and black and white, which shows its age and my age. We thought that a few clinical journals would pick this up. We thought that we might get a couple of phone calls. Other things were going on in the world anyway. There was Iran-gate at the time. There were hurricanes in the UK. There was a stock market crash. Sounds rather familiar, doesn't it? How wrong could we be? We were overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed by the response. Looking back, I think this is the first time that peer clinical audit had been done on such a scale. To some extent, this was good news. Although back in the real world, and I thought this should have been on the front page, not us, and it took us 30 years to get our own back on Pakistan. So, although it was doom and gloom, the day after publication and the day after all that press, the Department of Health announced that it would give us national funding. We had no idea that was coming. We did not know. We were not told. We were not informed. It just appeared in an announcement. Just goes to show what power of the press is. We did a press response. I think this was to the Times, but I can't actually remember. We decided to correct the facts and put the case. And I got this out the other day for today's talk. And I thought, well, yes, I remember that. And then I turned it over. And on the back, here's Robert Maxwell again. Which I find most peculiar. Our old friend making an appearance. Followed us all the way to publication. Now, I think Brendan and John achieved their legacy. They changed the future landscape of clinical audit in the UK. Alistair put it this way, and I think I can't better that. That's quite difficult. He captured the thinking at the time. There had been a shift in the way that people were thinking about things. So, we've moved from monochrome to colour in 30 years. Quicker than that, actually. Perhaps in the next 30 years, you'll be doing it all in 3D. Who knows? Thank you very much.